trying to fix healthcare, and I think the fix is in. I think anybody reasonable would say, hey, Abe, before you try to fix healthcare, why don't you take a look at Medicare and Medicaid, because they're wildly out of control, right? Their combined budgets are $700 billion. Grab onto yourself. That's bigger than the defense budget. Our savings are supposed to come from cutting $17 billion for Medicaid in the next 5 years. That doesn't even count the fraud that nobody's paying attention to. You know, they always keep talking about the big bad insurers. They made a 2.2% profit. That's a pretty slim profit margin. And that's over the entire system, while Medicare and Medicaid have lost $60 billion in fraud. And that's what we know of. May I ask you what I think is a reasonable question, America? If you were serious about cleaning up the waste, wouldn't you, do that first before taking on another healthcare job? Wouldn't you, I don't know, at least appoint a head of the Medicare or Medicaid program? This president hasn't done that yet. Did you know that? Why didn't you know that? Why aren't people telling you this? Kevin Williamson, he is the deputy managing editor for the National Review. Kevin, stunning that I was thinking about this as a businessman. If I was going to take over a company and I was going to say, okay, I got to get all the way, I'm going to cut a lot of expenditure out there, I would at least have my own guy in there to evaluate how bad the situation is.
Yeah, there's nobody in charge, and I think you're absolutely right about that. They don't want to evaluate how bad the situation
is.
Nobody wants to know. It's a bad, bad story, Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security are about half of the federal budget. I mean, it's a huge, huge group of programs. It's going to get bigger and bigger over time. And the amount of fraud, waste, abuse, just outright crime and theft going on in those programs is unreal. But what's almost as bad are the things that are done that are improper, but not actually, strictly speaking, illegal. There's all sorts of money that's shunned in different ways. And
legal.
Well, when Joe Wilson got himself all bent out of shape when he said you lied to President Obama about covering illegal aliens, he wasn't lying. In fact, Medicaid was found to be spending billions of dollars every year improperly covering illegal aliens, and they were doing that because they're empowered to spend money on illegals if it's an emergency condition, like if a woman goes into an emergency room to deliver a baby. So that was one example of that, but what they did was they took that example and just decided that pregnancy in general was an emergency condition. So they were using Medicaid to pay for everything from prenatal vitamins to postpartum.
See, I'm telling you, this is why I've said you cannot let any bill pass.
No.
You can't, because they get their foot in the door, and this is Cass Sunstein's speciality.
Yeah.
Well, if you just tweak things just a little bit, he'll just open these things up and it's done.
Sure, the thing is, it doesn't matter what's actually in the bill. What matters is what happens in the administrative apparatus years and years after the fact.
Do you think that's why, you find abortion and everything else in this? Because then they can say, oh, you were going to cut all that out. They're expecting that way it looks like they're being more reasonable, but it doesn't. What the average American doesn't seem to get, I think, and maybe the Republicans do get it, it doesn't matter. Once you pass this bill, it's over.
Yeah, well, every bureaucracy is statist, right? And once you create the bureaucracy, you're going to get statism out of it. There's not going to be a sort of libertarian bureaucracy out there. All that matters is that you get the program created, and then years down the road, you can shape it the way you want it to. Medicare and Medicaid were never expected to develop the way they did.
Do you know anything about Michelle Bachmann was on my radio show today, and she said that she was asking for people to come to Washington on Thursday at noon and listen to John Voight, and then go into the Capitol and go face-to-face with their representatives. And I got calls from people. I didn't think people would do it. I got calls from people all over the country saying, I'm coming.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Sure.
Will you think that makes any difference?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so at all. I think Washington is so insulated. Even this year coming up, the next set of elections, there's a great deal of dissent out there right now with the Tea Party movement and all the rest of it. But I bet real money that you'll see 80-odd% of incumbents still reelected, maybe 90-odd%. Once you're in office, it's hard to get rid of you.
Okay, back in just a second.